अस्मद्परम्परया विद्महे ज्ञानलिङ्गेश्वराय धीमहि तन्नो गुरुः प्रचोदयाते। ओम योग महर्षि डॉक्टर स्वामी गीतानंद गिरी गुरु महाराज की जय। ओम पुदुवै कलैमामणि पुदुवै शक्ति योगचारिणी अम्मा जी मीनाक्षी देवी भवनानी गुरु माता की जय। ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरि ओम। Namaste, swagatam, bonjour, buongiorno, buonasera, buonanotte, huya more, boreda, kiora, salamat pagi, ayu bovan, ayushman bhava. Welcome, welcome, welcome. What a beautiful day, a bright day here in Pondicherry. We have just completed the annual International Yoga Festival conducted by the Government of Pondicherry, Department of Tourism, 27th such festival in 30 years. Started in 1993 with the grace and involvement of Swamiji and Ammaji. Has continued every year except for the tsunami, Thane cyclone and then last year for COVID. But yet this year managed to have a festival, a wonderful festival, meeting and greeting so many wonderful members of our family, sharing in such a beautiful manner. Today's topic is a topic that is very, very hot. Asana. Because so many seem to think yoga is only asana. And when they think yoga is only asana, they limit even asana to only the physical component, forgetting that asana itself has the entire wholesomeness of yoga within it, if practiced with that attitude, beatitude and perspective. However, in modern times, asana has become just one of those keep fit exercises, the lazy man's gymnastics, and has got watered down to something that is so far removed from what our ancient rishis conceptualized as asana. Our rishis were the original scientists. They had that divine perspective. They had the capacity to perceive reality, to witness reality in its wholesome Purna Swarupa. And then they have shared that vision, that perspective with us. When we talk about asana, I think for me the most important baseline for anything in yoga is the yoga darshana given to us by Maharishi Patanjali. Because Maharishi Patanjali is, and you can underline that, is the authority we need to refer to. Maharishi Patanjali gives us this very beautiful schematic of Ashtanga, starting with Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi, and these 8 Angas, Ashtanga, 8 limbs. Again, do not confuse them to be steps. They are limbs. And just as all the limbs are interconnected in our body, all the limbs of Ashtanga Yoga are interconnected, and each one supports, nourishes each other. Hence, when we try to dismantle Ashtanga Yoga and present it as only one component, that is where I think the struggle comes, because we then are using a reductionist breakdown approach, which is the antithesis of the spirit of yoga, which is build up wholesome oneness approach. In the schematic of Maharishi Patanjali, the place of asana is given when he has talked about yama and niyama in great detail. Each one of the yama having its own sutra, And in fact, Saucha having 2 sutras to its credit. So this immense detailing of yama niyama, which everybody has conveniently forgotten about. He then, after giving that yama and niyama, he mentions the word asana. A is long, asana. It's not asana. You have all these weird pronunciations that run around, and I'm like, seriously? Try to get at least the terms correct, okay? A is long. That is why that A, you put that small line above it, it means it's a long A. And so the long A is at the beginning, not at the end of asana. That is why when it comes into Hindi, it becomes asan. Because in Hindi, we cut out that end part, and so asan. Asan. In Sanskrit, asana. In Tamil and other South Indian language, asanam. Because we like to add that at the end. Satisfaction. Satiety. And humming is good for your sinuses and nitric oxide and immunity and all of that stuff. So, asanam. Asanam in Tamil. Asanam. In fact, if you go into Tirumula, who has given us the Tamil 3000 verses of yoga, there they didn't have that word sa. Sa sound wasn't there. Okay? So they didn't have that sa, and so they have the sound da. So, adanam. And so yama, for example, is iyamam. Niyama is niyamam. Adanam. Adanam. So even sa doesn't exist in the Tamil, the original Tamil. Nowadays we have incorporated the sound. So a is long, sana, asana. Yama, niyama, asana. And later on in a few subsequent sessions we'll look at what happens to pranayama also. But here, asana, oh my God, I've heard it all. It's astonishing what you can hear. So let's get the term right. Asana, asana, asan, asanam. Okay, these are the varieties that we have there. So, asana, asanam, asan. Fine. That na is short. In Sanskrita, it is a short a at the end. The beginning is a long a. A. The end is a short a. Asana, asana, asana. Okay, this is how you get it. So after giving us this detailed exposition of yama niyama, he starts to mention asana. Now the first time the term asana is used by Maharishi Patanjali is when he describes the limbs of Ashtanga. Yoganga Anushtanat. So then he says, what are these anga? What are the limbs? Yama, niyama, asana. So that is the first time he mentions asana. Then he straight away hits the target, bullseye. Sthira Sukham Asanam. And if you look at this, 3 words all put together, conjoined. Okay? 3 words put together. Sthira Sukha Asana. Sthira Sukham Asanam. Sthira Sukham Asanam. And when you chant it, it is Sthira Sukham Asanam. Sthira Sukham Asanam. When you split up, Sthira Sukha Asana. Sthira Sukham Asanam. That is how you split it up. So, what is this asana according to Maharishi Patanjali? Asana is a state of being. Asana is a state of being, not something you do. Okay, I'll come to that in a few moments. Asana is a state of being where you have sthirata and sukhata. Sthirata, sthira. Sthira means stability. You have stability, and sukhata, you have a sense of ease. Now many people have, because again, I won't blame anyone, but Indian languages, the words can have so many connotations, and there is a reference to context that needs to be applied always. The modern yoga scholars These yogi idiots, they just don't understand the context at all. They take it out of context and make a mess. Sthira is a sense of stability. Sukham is a sense of ease. So what does this imply? Sthirata means that you are not off balance. You are steady. You have found a steady sense of balance. Sthirata. A steady sense of balance that then enables you to experience a sense of ease because you are not pulled or pushed off balance. So this is an inner state of being. A state of being where you are established in a steady state of balance. Ease as health. Swasth. If you look at the definition of health in Indian context, swasth, it is all about sama. Sama means balance, equilibrium. So asana in the context of Maharishi Patanjali's teachings is a state of being where you are established in the steady state of balance. You are at ease with yourself. You are not pulled and pushed off balance. You are not thrown off balance by anything. And this is then again brought out because he says asana is sthira sukham. Then he says tato dvandva. What is the benefit of asana? What is the benefit of asana? That also he tells us. Dvandva anabhigata. The dvandvas, dva, two twos. Amma used to call them the two twos. Dvandva, dva. Dva is two. Dvandva. The dvandvas are the pairs of opposites that are omnipresent. The whole universe is bipolar. Purusha, Prakriti, anion, cation, you name it, is all bipolar. So there are always going to be the polar opposites, including the kleshas, raga and dvesha. So that state of asana, that state of being which is asana, when you are established in a steady state of balance, you are established very dynamically in it. The opposites no longer can control you anymore because you have taken the control back to your own self. Somebody likes you, fine. Somebody doesn't like you, fine. It is hot, fine. It is cold, fine. You are praised, fine. You are abused, fine. Can we find that balance where the dvandvas do not have a control over us anymore? We have regained control over our responses to the bipolar opposites that are omnipresent every moment of your life. Every moment of your life you are going to have choices. To be or not to be, to do or not to do, is going to always be there. What is the choice you make? The choice you make must come from a place which is having steady balance and ease. Because then that choice will lead you on the path called Shreya Marga, the path of noble living. Otherwise, Preya Marga is where we'll end up going. So, Dvandva Anabhigata, what he says is, it's not that the dualities will go away. You will transcend the dualities. What a beautiful teaching of Maharishi Patanjali. Because yoga ultimately is all about transformation and transcendence. The rest of it is a popcorn and ice cream. Okay? Popcorn and ice cream is the rest of it. The most important part is transformation and transcendence. Often my father used to talk about this. Swamiji would say, he says, you don't solve your problems. Because people used to come and, I have this problem, Swamiji, that problem, this problem, that problem. And Swamiji would say, you don't actually solve your problems, you outgrow your problem. You don't solve it, you outgrow it. When you outgrow it, it doesn't affect you anymore. This is part of the natural process. As a young kid, we all have so many problems. Everything seems like this is the worst. And then as you grow up, you go beyond those problems. But then you have a new set. It's like a video game, At level 1, you have all these challenges. So you solve those challenges and you go to level 2. Now in level 2, you don't have the challenges of level 1. But the bad news is you have new challenges which are often of a greater nature. Because life wants us to constantly grow, evolve, transform and transcend. So what Patanjali says is, day and night are going to be there, like and dislike are going to be there, man and woman are going to be there, hot and cold are going to be there, spicy and non-spicy is going to be there. He says, what can you do about it? You cannot change that. What can you change? You can change yourself. You can grow bigger than that. That is the transcendence that asana is offering us. Asana offers us an opportunity to transform ourselves physically, emotionally, mentally and spiritually, and transcend the dualities so that you are then established in a place which is an inner state of sukham. That's sukhasthanam, where you are at ease with yourself, and hence you will be responsive and not reactive. You will be reflective, not reflexive. You will stop being what my father would call a spinal cord mentality, and you will start to use the prefrontal cortex, which is what truly makes us a human being. This is where the growth occurs. Sthira sukham asanam, tato dvandva anabhigata. How does that anabhigata occur? How do you get to that anabhigata of the dvandva? Patanjali again gives us the methodology. He is an amazing scientist. He is such an amazing scientist. I tell you, our modern scientists, all of us are, I don't know what we are. These rishis were the real scientists, especially Maharishi Patanjali. Very clear teachings, very clear teachings. What is asana? Sthira sukham asanam. When you attain asana, what happens? Tato dvandva anabhigata. Now, how do you get there? He says, listen. He says, prayatna shaitilya ananta samapattibhyam. He's given the methodology. What an amazing teaching. What an amazing teaching. He says, prayatna shaitilya. Now in modern yoga, is it really yoga? Sometimes we wonder, but anyway, it's okay. It's all about get into the asana and push, push, push. Push until you break. And then you will have a fraud writing a book called The Science of Yoga. Well, his name rhymes with fraud. I don't even want to tell you his name because I don't want his book to be sold. What nonsense in the name of science. You have to regain the locus of control. Who is to be in control of your life? You. Not somebody else. And this is why the whole process of asana is a process of finding that inner balance. And so Maharishi Patanjali says, prayatna shaitilya. Prayatna means effort. Prayatna is effort. Shaitilya is relaxation. Prayatna, shaitilya. Prayatna Shaitilya, what a beautiful concept. Now people say, oh, that means do no effort. They say, do no effort. No. That is a misinterpretation. What it means is you do the effort and you become so skillful in your effort that you transcend the effort and your effort becomes effortless. Effortless effort is Prayatna Shaitilya. You first have to do and then you have to let go. Do your best, leave the rest. Abhyasa followed by Vairagya. Abhyasa, the accelerator, then Vairagya, the brake. If you only put the brake, you will not get out of your garage. You need to first put the accelerator to get the car moving. And you should know when to put accelerator, when to put the brake. That is the type of interplay that enables your vehicle to travel on the road. Similarly, the inner interplay between effort and relaxation enables you to travel on that inner journey towards finding inner balance. It is that harmonious dance between Prayatna Shaitilya, Prayatna Shaitilya, Prayatna Shaitilya. When to make the effort, when to let go. How much to make the effort, how much to let go. How far you can push, how far you don't. You know, this finding the balance between this moment. It's a beautiful dance. Prayatna Shaitilya, Prayatna Shaitilya, Prayatna Shaitilya. So it's not just let go of the effort and lie down and be a lazy slug, as Ammaji says. It is not being a lazy slug, okay? That's not asana. Slugasana. No, it's not slugasana. What it means is, you need to know by using your viveka. The whole goal of Yoganga is viveka kyati. Developing the viveka, the buddhi. Okay? Becoming a buddhiman manushya. Becoming a human being who's endowed with a higher intellect. That has the understanding of discernment. What to do, when to do, how to do, what not to do. All of that discernment is being developed through this. How to put the effort, how to let go. Prayatna Shaitilya. Where your effort becomes effortless effort. Yogeshwar Krishna tells us the same. To see action, to see karma in akarmani, action in inaction, and akarmani cha karma. How to see inaction in action. Action in inaction and inaction in action. Prayatna Shaitilya, Prayatna Shaitilya. So it's not the absence of effort. Many people have mistranslated this. Because we have had scholars translating the yoga text, not yoga people. I won't even call ourselves yogis, but yoga people at least we can say. Those in yoga, with the understanding of yoga, need to reinterpret all of these translations. Not language experts. Subject experts are required. Subject experts, not language experts. So, Prayatna Shaitilya is not the absence of effort. It is the effortless effort that comes from understanding the dynamics of Spanda Nishpanda. That when do you make the effort, when do you let go? Because that is how the balance is developed in our own being. So that is the first component of getting to asana. What is the second component? Ananta Samapattibhyam. Ananta Samapattibhyam. Now you know what? Again mistranslation. Ananta. Ananta is the great Sheshnag, the big serpent on which Lord Vishnu is sleeping, reclining. So when you do asana, you have to think of a snake on which Vishnu is sleeping. No, for God's sake. That's not what's meant. I've heard this translation. What crazy translations you hear. What we need to understand is Ananta means that which doesn't have an end. Anta is the end, finite. Ananta is infinite. Infinity. Ananta means infinity. A is the negation of Anta. You know, people get so confused. Yes, Ananta is also the name of the serpent on which Vishnu reclines, and that serpent is said to have been born as Patanjali. So Patanjali is telling you, contemplate on him. So put up a picture of Patanjali and say, hail Patanjali, hail Patanjali. No. No, 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 no. Ananta. Ananta, the opposite of Anta. Anta is the end. That which is finite. Ananta is that which is infinite. Because the principle of conservation, Lord Vishnu, is based on infinity. You know, it is so important. Your conservation principle, that is what Lord Vishnu is. Lord Vishnu is the principle of conservation, maintenance. I call him the maintenance engineer. Conservation is not just today. It has to be done every day forever. Every day forever. When we want to work on conserving the resources of this planet, it is not a one-time effort. It is a continuous effort that's going to be there for infinity. Conservation is an infinite process. So Lord Vishnu reclines on Ananta. We have to understand these pictorial metaphors that are part of this culture. So what does he say? Samapattibhyam. Try to contemplate infinity. So try to find that balance between effort and effortlessness. Effort, effortlessness, effort, effortlessness. And while you are doing that, contemplate infinity. What does contemplate infinity mean? Contemplate infinity means put everything in perspective. Put everything in perspective. That is the meaning of contemplate infinity. So, when you contemplate infinity, when you put your problems in perspective, when you put yourself in the bigger perspective, you will realize that you were getting worried about nothing. Much ado about nothing. We usually have this in hindsight. You know, things that really got our blood boiling 10 years ago. Now when we look at that, we laugh at it. Now we laugh at it because, you know, it's in hindsight. And we are like, oh, how did I do such stupid things when I was young? Oh my God, Yoga Festival 27 years. Some of the festivals, you know, why did I react that way? Seriously, what was it worth for? At that time, it was that life and death matter. Ah! And now you laugh about it. What is Patanjali saying? In the present moment, when you are faced with the challenges of life, when you are in your sadhana, put your whole life in perspective by contemplating that infinity. When you contemplate infinity, when you put your life in perspective, you know what? That sthirata and sukhata will automatically come. Sthirata and sukhata will automatically come. Effortless effort coupled with understanding the big picture. And suddenly, you become a balanced human being. And all these things, someone comes and says, you know what he said about you? And you're like, so what? Oh, they praised you. So what? They criticized you. So what? They're out there spreading rumors about you. So what? Because you have grown. Instead of, oh, I love that, they like me, I love that. Oh, they don't like me. No. You have understood the context. You have understood what it is. And this is where the whole process of asana is not something on your mat alone. It is every moment of your life where you are constantly trying to understand the balance between effort and relaxation. Between abhyasa and vairagya. Between spanda and nishpanda. And you know what this spanda nishpanda is all about? Your autonomic nervous system. Your sympathetic and your parasympathetic. Sympatho vagal balance. Sthira sukham asanam. Sympatho vagal balance. That is a modern scientific understanding of it. Because your effort is always sympathetic. And your relaxation is always parasympathetic. Sympathetic. Parasympathetic. Every time you breathe in, it is effort. Every time you breathe in, it is an effort. The sympathetic nerves start to get activated. And so your heartbeat goes faster. As you breathe out, and especially if you elongate that exhale, you are coming into a state of balance. Sinus arrhythmia, vagal tone. You are recruiting all the vagal parasympathetic powers. You are finding a balance there. Sympatho vagal balance. Spanda nishpanda, prayatna shaitilya. and you are putting everything, you have a problem, put it in perspective. My English teacher, Kumar Swami, in school, I remember when I was in 7th grade, he used to talk about this example a lot. An example where he said, he was quoting someone and he said, I used to cry for new shoes. I used to cry for new shoes until I met someone who had no feet. I used to cry for new shoes until I met someone who had no feet. That is called putting your problems in perspective. That is called putting your life in perspective. That is called understanding how fortunate you are to be alive even in this COVID pandemic. To realize the blessings we have in life and put your life in perspective. Understand there are 7 billion plus people with 7 billion into a billion type of problems, the permutations and combinations. And suddenly your problems pale in comparison. And as your problems pale in comparison, you start to find that inner sthirata and sukhata. Sthira sukham asanam prayatna shaitilya ananta samapatibhyam tato dvandva anabhigata. 3 operative sutras and 1 sutra where he has mentioned the term asana as part of yama, niyama, asana. 4 sutras where he mentions asana out of 196. 4. And today, this whole yoga industry is an oxymoron. $1 billion industry. The yoga industry is an oxymoron, okay? Yoga is based on altruism. It doesn't mean you don't charge for your class, okay? Please don't get me wrong there. But this whole build-up that has happened is the antithesis of yoga. 4 sutras. 1 is just listing it. 3 operative. Sthira sukham asanam, the definition of yoga. How do you get to it? Prayatna shaitilya ananta samapatibhyam, the methodology. And then what is the benefit? Tato dvandva anabhigata. What is the state? How do you get there? What is the benefit? Finished. What an amazing scientist. Now you say, Dr. Ananda, does this mean we stop doing the so-called asanas? And before that, I must tell you, there's a very big problem today. And it's called misinformation. And the net has really exacerbated that. And the other day, I found someone, a very eminent person, talking about how Maharishi Patanjali has given us Padmasana and Ardha Padmasana and all. I'm like, seriously. Maharishi Patanjali doesn't mention a single asana that you are doing today or that you will do in the future. Yet, there are people who say, Maharishi Patanjali talks of 4 asanas. No, he doesn't. There are 4 sutras related to asana. He doesn't talk of 4 asanas. You know, such confusion is going out there and getting into yoga teacher training and yoga therapist training. Of course, these are these fly-by-night trainings. Suddenly you come out with a certificate and can set up shop as part of the yoga industry. Asana has developed over the ages because yoga is an evolving science. Okay, yoga is a living tradition, evolving science. It's not dead yet, so don't put it in a box and bury it. That's what the yoga scholars want to do. Put it in a box, bury it, and study it, and then tell us in India what we are doing. What is very important here is that the concept of asana as something you do came in more with the tantric tradition that has then given us hatha yoga. So what is very important here is that the Hatha Yoga tradition started to give us techniques that could be done to attain the state of asana. And because they were techniques done to attain the state of asana, they were given the name of asana. You know, it's like you have the family names Carpenter. How did he get the family name Carpenter? Someone in his family was a carpenter, and so the family name Carpenter. Baker, all these family names, that is how they came. So, Tantra is the basis of Hatha Yoga. And what is the basis of Tantra? Atharva Veda. It is not some new thing. Atharva Veda is the basis of Tantra. And that is the basis from which the evolution led to the asanas which could be done. Why were they done? To induce an inner sense of stability and ease and a transcendence of the dualities. That was the process. And that is why always in the asana, the concept of loma viloma, balancing the opposites in the asana. If you do the right side, you do the left. If you do a forward bending, you do a backward bending. If you have done a standing, you do a sitting and you do a lying down. There is this concept of always going through the process of prayatna shaitilya, finding the balance. It is part and parcel of all the traditions. Now the modern deviations are all this push, push, push. That is not yoga anymore. That is not asana anymore. That is strenuous exercise. That is not asana. Asana means balance. So there has to always be a balance between what you are doing, the effort you are making and the relaxation you are taking even in that session. So there will be the active part of the session, then there will be the inactive relaxation part of the session. Yesterday I saw a proposal put out by some ministry in Government of India, where they had all these activatory practices in only 5 minutes. Out of 60 minutes, only 5 minutes for relaxation. That is totally the antithesis of yoga. You need a minimum of 10 to 15 minutes of relaxation at the end of a good asana session, so that the balance is there. Prayatna shaitilya can be there. Settling down can be there. The effort you make in asana, the benefit comes when you let go and relax. Often the benefit is not while you are doing the asana, but after you have done the asana and you rest or relax, that is where the benefit comes. And that is why normally in traditional methodologies, we would do an asana, relax for a few seconds, do another asana, relax. This asana after asana after asana after asana, it's a modern deviation. There was always that balance. Because it wasn't push, it was find that balance. So coming back to this, in the performance of asana, even as a physical practice, what we find is that the concept of 84,100,000 asanas, 8.4 million asanas, and everybody is trying to find a book with all those asanas, you will not find a book. Because this is a metaphor. 8.4 million, 84,100,000, 84 lakhs in India. 8.4 million asanas implies that every life form has its own asana. Every life form has a place where it is at ease with itself and in a steady balance. That is its asana. So it is said in our tradition, there are 2.1 million forms of life that come from sweat, shvedaja. 2.1 million come from seed, udbija. Another 2.1 are said to come from egg, andaja. So shvedaja from sweat and slime. This is all the bacteria and viruses. Imagine a bacteria and virus having its own asana, corona asana. Everyone has its own state of being where it is at ease with itself. That's its asana. 2.1 slime, 2.1 seed, 2.1 egg, and 2.1 from the womb, the mammals. In that 2.1 million, someplace comes the human being. Just see this. And that is why when the rishis named the asanas, they named them after the different living beings. The living and the non-living even were included there. So that you start to understand what those beings are feeling. This is where yoga was always eco-friendly, environment-friendly. The yogis were the original green people. The modern greens are very different than that. The original greens were the yogis. They wanted to know what does a tree feel like. They wanted to know what does a snake feel like. They wanted to know what does a cow feel like. What does a bull feel like. What does a horse feel like. And so they put themselves into body positions where they could experience what other fellow life forms were experiencing. Asanas are simulation techniques. You simulate the experience. I have given many talks on this, but just to put it there. This got systematized in the Hatha tradition, and so you started to have this 8.4 million that Shiva has taught to Parvati. For those of you who think women were debarred from yoga, no, Shiva taught Parvati. So the first student itself is Parvati. So get that gender discrimination out of your head for sure. Everybody can do yoga. Everybody is worthy of yoga as long as they are willing to make the self-effort. Self-effort is the currency of spiritual growth. Full stop. So, when we find this, we find that 8.4 million gets along the way in different traditions, Goraksha, Satakam, Shiva Samhita, Hatha Ratnavali and other places. You find all of this coming in and becoming 84 asanas. So the next aspect was 84 asanas. This in the Hatha Pradapika by Swatmarama, he gives 15 and Rishi Geranda in the Geranda Samhita gives 32. So this is where it sort of got codified into, okay, these are asanas. It could be the Uttana Mandukasana, it could be the Padmasana, the Siddhasana, the Bhadrasana and all of these. Muktasana, you have all these type of asanas coming in, where it started to become what became a form of asana. But we must be willing to go a bit back to understand, as Ammaji reminds us always. Ammaji, amazing. Yesterday Divya gave a beautiful presentation at the yoga festival on Amma's teachings. And one of Ammaji's beautiful teachings here is that asana comes from asi. Asi, which means to be. Like Tattvam Asi. Tattvam Asi is one of the Mahavakyams of the Vedas. Thou art that. That is what you are. Asi is to be. And in an asana, you want to be you. It is enabling you to be you. That wholesome form of you-ness. You-ness. A new word came there. What a beautiful concept. To be. Now in that growth, initially there will be effort. And this is why I love my dear Georg Fürsten, who gave me a term in his writings which is poise. P-O-I-S-E for asana. Normally you hear about asana as pose, P-O-S-E, or posture, P-O-S-T-U-R-E. But he gave this beautiful concept of poise, because that is that sthira sukha. That is a poise, a state of being, to be. And this is where we start to realize asana goes through its own evolution. So when we start to work with the asanas in Hatha Yoga, what we find is initially there's a lot of effort. There's a lot of effort, so there's a lot of doing. Asana, in the beginning, there's a lot of doing. So there will be the doing component. Doing, pushing. That is the first part. And you come into something which is a pose. Now normally pose means something you're doing for an external benefit. He is posing as if he is a doctor. He is posing as if he is a master. He is posing as if he is the director. Basically it means you are acting as if you are something. Pose. So this is where asana initially is a pose. And yes, you are posing for the camera and your Instagram yogi status and selfies and all that. The yoga selfies that you want to do. That is all posing. So asana as pose implies you are doing, but your focus is external. You are doing for the sake of something. And even in yogasana sport, it will be pose. So people are doing the pose to get the medal. So there is a pose to put on Instagram, a pose to get a medal, a pose to be appreciated, a pose to get claps. That is the pose part. Much more externally focused, doing based. The paradigm is doing. Now as you go on your asana sadhana, as you go through your asana sadhana, you start to grow in it. Because remember, asana is not separate from yoga. Asana is not separate from yoga. All the limbs are interconnected. So as you work on your asana sadhana, you start to evolve from pose, which is external base, to posture, which is an inner transformation occurring. You are posturing a change. This is where the cultivation of a change starts to occur. That transformation starts to become an internal change, which is posturing energies. So you start to posture energies. You start to experience the flows of the energies, the ha and the ta within you, the loma and the viloma, the pingala and the ida. All this you start to experience as you start to posture. And posture implies you are starting an inner transformation. So initially the pose was an external orientation. In the stage of posture, you are starting to posture something. You are starting to posture means to modulate. You are starting to modulate and change the dynamic aspects. There is a dynamic change occurring. This is the posture stage of asana. So the pose stage of asana, posture stage of asana, and as you keep on your asana sadhana, you start to go deeper into yourself and you start to find that asi. You start to find that place where that sthirata and sukhata exists. And in that place you start to move into poise. The evolution of asana starts with pose. You first have to do something. You have to get onto the mat. You have to get there to do something. You have to pose. As you do the pose, you start to grow into a sense of posturing. This is the cultivation of the attitudes, the beatitudes that come out of the asana. As you bend forward, the attitude of humility. As you bend back, the attitude of self-esteem and self-confidence. As you twist the body, you learn to twist through the struggles of life. This is how you start to grow internally. The posturing occurs and then you start to find that inner balance. That inner balance, which is, the seesaw goes up and down and 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 up and down, and finally balance. Up or down is pose. Up and down is posturing. Balance is poise. Pose to posture to poise. That is the evolution of asana when you go through the asana sadhana and when you start to go in. Many people stop at the pose part and maybe that's where they have to stop this time. But if you can move from that pose into the posture and you can grow into that poise, that state of poise is the state of sthira sukha asanam, where you transcend the dualities. The dualities of the external world as well as the dualities of the internal world. The autonomic imbalances of the sympathetic parasympathetic. Instead of being sympathetic dominant or parasympathetic dominant, you start to have autonomic balance. that autonomic balance which is occurring inside you. A harmonious balance between body, mind, emotions and spirit. A sense of stability, dynamic stability. This is not stability that once you find it, all's well that ends well. No. And once you find that stability, now the bigger challenge is to maintain it. Find the stability first. Attain the stability. Attain stability, then you have to maintain stability. And when you lose it, you have to regain stability. That is what it's all about. Attain stability, maintain stability, regain stability. Because that stability is a dynamic balance. Because we are living beings. We are living beings. Yoga is a living tradition. So, it cannot be full stop. There can be a small comma. There may be a semicolon, there may be a colon, but it will not be a full stop. Our effort is continuous. Our effort has to be sustained by our sankalpa, which is towards satkara, the highest aspiration. These are some thoughts I wanted to share with you today about asana. I may have to take another session on it. Let us see how things go. But we have gone through the yama niyamas, wanted to come to asana and work through each of the angas so that we have a sequence building over the next few months. Thank you so much everyone for being with me. We are getting closer to our 80s. We are in the late 70s now. And let's see how long this can go on. But I think it will. We all need it. I need it because by opening up to you, I'm also speaking to myself. This is one of the greatest joys of teaching, is that as you teach, as you share, you also start to hear yourself. You start to grow with it. And in that growth, we are all helping each other. We are all fellow travelers, helping each other on the path. And those in front can give a hand for those behind, and those behind can take the help of those in front. And those who are next to each other can hold hands and keep walking the path. Keep moving forward. Sadhu, sadhu. Dhanyavadaha. Thank you so much for being with me. May you all be blessed and be a blessed team. Hari Om Tat Sat.